The Ant King never could have imagined, rare as he was among his kind, that every single queen would reject him outright. His body was simply too small, too slight, and not one queen was willing to spend even a single spirit core on him. With nowhere left to turn, he set out for the Ashen Continent. There, by chance, he crossed paths with a Blossom Mantis warrior. From that moment on, the gears of their fates began to turn in silence, and the Ant King carved out a path, one that needed no queen to build a kingdom. The Ember Spider clan roams the continents as traveling merchants. They live by two rules: absolute neutrality and a profit margin of no less than 20%. But this time, Orin is about to take a loss. Thorn was found by Orin in the spring of last year. The name too was his gift to him. He had assumed that a male ant king, a rarity beyond compare, would be eagerly sought after in a world of all-female ant colonies. The result was the opposite. 100% greedhead queens had been approached. Every single one said no. Now spring has come again. Thorn is now a level 4 ant king, still in the early stage. For insect warriors, each molt marks one level of evolution. At each stage, a warrior chooses a plant seed to draw into the life sac, nurturing it into a life seed. Thorn has already cultivated 3 cypress life seeds: a dragon cypress, a prickly juniper, and a garden cypress. What he urgently needs now is a safe stretch of territory to plant them. Thorn, I'm sorry. Orin trails off, unable to finish. Behind him, a dark brown male ant hangs his antennae low, utterly defeated. I know, he says quietly. Orin, what am I supposed to do? The reason Thorn is so afraid is that there is no place for a lone ant on the Allkind continent without the protection of a fellow ant king of his own kind. The moment he strays from the merchant convoy and is spotted by a patrol soldier ant, they will treat him as an invader and kill him on sight. Just then, a destination comes to Orin's mind, somewhere safe. But the conditions there are harsh. At these words, hope reignites in Thorn's eyes. He waves his antennae eagerly. Where? The divine barrier erected by the nature god divides the planet into 8 continents. 4 lie in the northern hemisphere. Only 2 are rich in primal energy. The other 2 have fallen into dormancy. At this time, the Scaled Continent and the Ashen Continent are both in their dormant phase. Dormancy means this: the primal energy of the mountain ranges is spent, and the natural flow of energy has gone still. And since all such creatures are beings of primal energy, to be without it is like a fish without water. Survival becomes impossible. The Ashen Continent is dormant, yes, but it is the only place Orin can think of. Barren enough to survive in, barren enough to be safe. Thorn catches the weight of his words. His feelings are tangled. At last he gives a slow nod and thanks him for everything he has done. I'll take you there myself, he says. Orin informs Koss, the convoy leader, and the two of them slip away from the caravan. Along the way, Thorn's eyes are drawn to a row of standing stone monuments. He asks Orin what they are. Memorial steels of the Ember Spider clan. They record the primal energy conditions on the other side of the Ashen Continent. Each carved spider represents 8 years. Each steel holds 100 carvings. 5 steels, 4,000 years. The 6th is being carved now, and it's more than halfway done. Thorn climbs to a high point and surveys the landscape. He is puzzled. How does one pass through the nature god's divine barrier? Orin points to an unassuming little passage. Follow it straight through and you'll reach the Ashen Continent. Primal energy seeps through the passage continuously, flowing to the other side. So, Thorn, find a high slope near the exit and settle there. Plant your life seeds. As he speaks, Orin moves at a brisk crawl, leading him around the hillside to an opening barely a meter across. An Ember Spider of the Mountain Master rank is far too large to fit inside. Buried beneath the hillside lies a starship from a civilization beyond the stars. Long, long ago, the nature god struck it down and it crashed here, and in time it became the passage through the divine barrier. Back when the starship first fell, many ant kings came to explore it. They stripped it of every treasure they could carry. It's spacious inside. Follow the markings once you're in. Don't wander off or you'll get lost. As he gives his instructions, Orin uses his mind to loosen the silk strands binding him pack, unraveling them and drawing open one of the pouches. From inside he retrieves a small, compact travel sack. Thank you. Thorn receives it with both forelimbs. It looks sizable but holds only 3 life seeds, and 6 precious hardwood seeds Thorn had gathered himself. Just as Thorn is about to leave, Orin calls him back one more time. With a soft, tearing sound he opens another pouch. 5 black grain kernels drift out, each one the size of Thorn's head. Thorn, this is iron wheat. It strengthens your carapace, a small parting gift. Good luck. Thorn opens his travel sack and tucks the iron wheat kernels in one by one. Orin, will we see each other again? Thorn's voice carries a quiet sadness. He is reluctant to go. Orin's mood is no lighter. More than a decade of trading, and this is the first deal that has cost her. It stings. He cannot bear it. He does not want to let go. Without the protection of his own kind, this small ant king who has followed him for a year will most likely not survive the brutal wilderness on his own. Orin manages a smile. Barring anything unexpected, I'll return here in 2 years. I hope I'll still find you. 2 years from now, you will find me. I promise. Thorn gathers his pack and gathers himself. I owe you 5 kernels of iron wheat, the worth of 2 spirit cores. I'll repay you in cypress seeds of equal value. With that, Thorn steps into the passage with steady, measured strides. Inside the passage, Thorn keeps Orin's words close to mind. He follows the markings carefully, not daring to stray. He passes quickly through a layer of packed earth, then comes upon a newly built but battered metal door. Beyond it opens a wide, all-metal corridor. Countless ages have passed through here. The walls are mottled with rust, and arrow markers etched by unknown plant tendrils point the way forward. He walks, not knowing how long, not knowing how far, until exhaustion sets in and his legs can carry him no further. Only then does Thorn stop and eat 1 kernel of iron wheat. Then he sets off again. The strength drains once more. He stops again, eats another kernel, presses on again. At last a thread of dawn light breaks through the endless dark. He squeezes through the gap of a heavy metal door, crawls through a stretch of earth and stone, and steps out into the light of early morning. He has arrived on the other continent. After a full day and night of travel, Thorn climbs to the crest of a hill. He sets down his pack and looks out in every direction. Behind him rises the divine barrier, stretching into the sky. sky. Before him, rolling mountains and a vast, unbroken forest. Just as Orin described, the concentration of primal energy here is far lower than on the neighboring Alkine continent. When he quiets himself and reaches out with his senses, he can feel it. Primal energy seeping steadily through the passage, only to thin and dissipate quickly, barren, and therefore safe. But that safety is only relative, compared to the Alkine continent next door. Frogs and insects chorus in the grass around him. From the forest, a beast's roar rolls out at intervals. For a level 4 ant king still in his early stage, the wilderness is a place of constant lurking danger. A cricket hops across his path. Thorn's wings snap open. He launches into the air and pins it to the ground. After eating his fill, he retreats into a patch of tall grass and lies low, resting until the sun draws close to midday. Only then does he lift his pack and set out, heading toward the peaks north of the hill. Thorn does not dare venture too far, nor does he wish to stray too far from the passage exit. Before nightfall, he chooses a suitable spot on the southeastern face of the peak and begins to dig into the rock, carving out a cave to call home. His instinct for danger is sharp and ever present. For the next 3 days, outside of hunting for food and sleeping, every waking moment is spent digging. On the 4th day, a gentle spring rain begins to fall. Thorn watches as the dry natural stream bed nearby begins to fill. Only then does he allow himself to relax. He digs a series of small pits between his cave and the stream, and plants his 3 life seeds. Then he presses small stones over them to stop insects or birds from digging them up. Among insect kind, a rare few are born at the level of primal energy life. Insect warriors. They possess a unique organ called the life sac, which transforms an ordinary plant seed into a life seed. When a life seed is planted, it grows into a primal plant. When it flowers and bears fruit, that fruit becomes primal food, nourishment that drives an insect warrior's growth and evolution. Life seeds are, quite literally, a matter of life and death for every insect warrior. Under normal circumstances, a low-level warrior plants their seeds under the protection of a higher-ranking warrior of the same kind. The ant kind differ from other insect races in one notable way. If a high-ranking ant king of the same clan offers protection, a squad of soldier ants can be dispatched to guard the seeds, simple enough. But for a young female ant king, even without the protection of a higher-ranking king, she can lay eggs and grow her own colony. By commanding her colony to tend and guard her seeds, she can navigate the vulnerable early stage with reasonable safety. Thorn is a solitary male ant king. He has no one. Everything falls to him alone. Using branches of crimson thorn vine, he builds a fence around his life seed saplings. He guards them day and night, hunting down every small insect that trespasses, and using them as compost. Time passes. The 3 cypress saplings push through the fragile early weeks and survive. They grow to roughly 2 meters tall, enough to call themselves truly rooted here. Orin's advice to choose cypress as his life seed was, all things considered, sensible and sound. Cypress trees are full of vitality. They adapt to their environment with ease, but their drawbacks are equally plain. 2 to 3 years of tending are needed before they reach even an initial maturity, bearing flowers and fruit for the first time, and 5 or more years must pass before yields become meaningful. Yet Thorn is already a level 4 ant king, a stage that should see rapid evolution. But with no spirit cores and no primal food to sustain him, his growth has nearly ground to a halt. The average lifespan of an early stage ant king is only about 15 years, and for a male likely shorter still. Past 8 years of age, decline begins, and each evolution becomes harder than the last. Thorn has been at level 4 for nearly half a year. If he cannot evolve in time and cultivate a 4th life seed, his territory will not produce enough primal food. Without enough primal food, the next evolution will be harder still. He must survive on his own and grow at the same time. Otherwise he risks falling into a vicious cycle, too poor to evolve, and too weak from not evolving to ever escape that poverty. In the end, an early death. The primal energy concentration is higher near the starship exit. I could make that my base, draw from the natural primal energy there, and advance to level 5 as soon as possible. Thorn works under the blazing sun, thinking as he labors, turning the idea over in his mind. A plan is forming. By late autumn, all 3 cypress saplings have grown beyond 3 meters tall. With the crimson thorn vine fence in place, they should be safe enough now. Thorn has long been fascinated by the starship. From time to time he flies to the hilltop just to look at it. The starship is constructed entirely from source alloy, and despite tens of thousands of years having passed, only its outer gilded coating has peeled away. Not a single metal component has decayed. According to Orin, even an insect king who has awakened metal abilities would need to exert tremendous effort to cause even minor damage to it. In the beginning, the impact must have carved an enormous crater into the earth. Over the long ages that followed, it was gradually swallowed by soil, and what remained rose into the hill that stands today. At night, Thorn shelters at the newly built passage exit to rest. By day, he sets about gathering food stores for winter, hunting crickets, grasshoppers, and other small insects near the cave entrance, cutting and drying them into jerky, then packing them away in silk pouches. In the golden days of late autumn, many insects simply die of old age on their own. Others are killed by the cold of the night. More often than not, Thorn does not need to hunt at all. They are practically free for the taking. With enough food stored for winter, he suddenly finds himself with nothing to do. After nearly a year of constant labor, Thorn finds the stillness unsettling. Only in the quiet does it hit him. He is utterly alone. He paces anxiously back and forth at the cave entrance. After 2 days of restless pacing, curiosity wins out. He ventures into the parts of the starship where no markings have been left. Ants possess pheromones, which can be used to mark a trail, though the markings do not last indefinitely. Thorn does not act recklessly. He first conducts repeated tests and drills, familiarizing himself with exactly how long his pheromone trails hold. Only then does he move. Every excursion is timed to the minute. Days of exploration follow. Every room he finds has a door forced open by brute strength and an interior stripped bare. Some rooms have had their doors taken off entirely. Orin was right. Everything that could be taken has been taken. Everything that could be broken has been broken. Thorn memorizes route after root, and with each one his confidence grows. He presses deeper. Then, by chance, he stumbles into an unusually wide corridor. On either side, heavy circular metal vault doors line the walls. Their surface is scarred with countless marks of attempted forced entry, yet none of them were opened. 10 such doors, 10 rooms in total. 9 have been breached through the walls from the side, and their contents long since removed. The 10th room has no breach in its walls, only near the ceiling is there an opening, damaged, but not severely. Thorn moves closer to examine it. The outer metal layer of the wall has been hammered by some insect king of an unknown age with brute, relentless force, leaving it badly damaged, yet sandwiched within the wall. A dark gold metal plate held firm, completely intact, with a single, perfectly regular circular hole in its surface. Thorn peers through the opening into the room beyond. His breath catches. There's something in here. At the center of the room, resting on a pedestal, sits an enormous sphere, a quarter of it missing, armrests on either side. It resembles, in a way, a seat. Through his senses, primal energy flows in through the hole and pools around the sphere. It appears to be a treasure capable of gathering primal energy on its own, an aid to cultivation. Thorn glances at the battered vault door, then tests the thickness of the wall. His excitement surges. The room is so heavily fortified because whatever is inside must be of exceptional value, and the spherical seat, too large, too heavy to move, has survived by sheer fortune. I can't move it either, but I can live nearby and use it to accelerate my evolution. With that thought settled in his mind, Thorn slips into the room, fans his wings open, and approaches with careful, measured movements. He circles the spherical seat in the air, examining it from every angle, above, below, left, and right. He is absolutely certain this is a treasure that gathers primal energy, and aids cultivation, an oversized seat like no other. It should be safe, shouldn't it? Thorn steadies himself, reining in his excitement. He circles it again and again, finding no sign of any threat, sensing none either. Only then does he land on the cushioned seat with confidence. Sure enough, the moment he lands, the seat seems to stir. The dense primal energy it has gathered flows toward him on its own, easing his absorption of it. Thorn gives his wings a comfortable shake, but does not let his guard down. He remains alert for a long while, and only when he is fully certain there is no danger does he fold his wings and settle down in peace. He then slips back out through the opening in the wall, following his pheromone trail through the air, noting every door he passes, committing every corridor junction to memory. He makes the journey back and forth 3 times, locking in the full route from the main corridor to the seat room, then flies back to his shelter at the newly built exit. He gathers his silk pouches packed with winter provisions, and makes trip after trip, carrying the food in pouches, until everything is moved into the room. The move is done. He settles comfortably onto the cushioned seat for the long term, drinking in primal energy with an almost greedy hunger. Time passes, how much he cannot say. Then the cocoon of primal energy light abruptly dissolves. Thorn stirs and slowly raises his head, sitting in silence for a long moment before full awareness returns. He is in a room inside the starship. He fell into a deep sleep on a great seat. That aids cultivation. Thorn exerts a careful, gentle push, and a crack splits open along the carapace on his back. He twists slowly, easing himself out of the old shell bit by bit. His newly emerged body, soft and tender, begins to expand. He unfurls his wings and waits in silence as his new carapace hardens and sets. He has evolved, a level 5 ant king early stage. The entire process goes remarkably smoothly. Waking from this sleep, he feels none of the crushing weakness that followed his previous 3 evolutions. Only his stomach is empty. Thorn pulls over a strip of jerky and gnaws at it, turning his attention inward to sort through the memories that have surfaced. Among the knowledge awakened by this evolution, a new racial ability has emerged. The ability to release pheromones that stimulate ant egg development, producing specialized soldier ants that grow even larger than an ant king himself. But he is a solitary male ant. Where would he ever find ant eggs? Without eggs, the racial ability awakened at level 5 is entirely useless. Thorn's chewing stills. Mixed into the awakened knowledge is a jumble of strange, seemingly unrelated information. Experiment designation GED SS541. Classified. Architect civilization. Dominion throne. Genetic information recognition and retrieval system. Modification complete. The architect civilization no longer exists. The endpoint of individual evolution is eternity. The endpoint of civilizational evolution is extinction. What became of the architect civilization today may yet become the fate of the wanderer civilization tomorrow. The Dominion throne was the architect civilization's final act of defiance. Its significance is limited, yet it has its merits, worth studying by the wanderer civilization. The architect civilization, the wanderer civilization. Do civilizations beyond the stars divide themselves into factions, just as the insect races do? It seems the wanderer civilization waged war, and destroyed the one known as the architects. I understand now. The great seat beneath me was seized by the wanderer civilization from the architects. Its name is the Dominion throne. Thorn has made sense of some of it, and is thoroughly confused by the rest. Above all, he cannot understand why this information surfaced in him at all. From the moment he woke, something felt different. Some kind of connection seems to have formed between him and the Dominion throne. Thorn turns the thought over, too restless to stay still. He finishes his jerky quickly, beats his wings and takes flight, and lands on the smooth convex surface at the top of the seat's backrest. The faint connection sharpens, and new information arrives. Please select emissary type Sentinel, Strength, or Cultivator, Agriculture. Thorn is baffled. He has never encountered anything like this before. In his confusion, he picks Sentinel at random. Please select quantity 1 or 2. With only 2 options, Thorn chooses 1. The Dominion throne shrinks rapidly, collapsing into a miniature seat. Thorn takes to the air in surprise, steadies himself after a brief moment of alarm, and lands back on the cushion. The Dominion throne is now exactly the right size, fitting Thorn's body perfectly, a natural match. A beam of blue light, emanating from the hemispherical protrusion on the backrest, sweeps across him. Scan complete. Physical condition poor. Nutritional and physical reserves depleted. Please replenish food and water promptly, and engage in moderate exercise. Reproductive function disabled. Thorn stares in bewilderment, then falls silent. The Dominion Throne is the architect civilization's final act of defiance. He doesn't know what it does, but he knows it is a treasure. That is enough. Thorn beats his wings and drops to the ground, takes another strip of jerky and continues eating. While reaching out to the throne with his mind, he tries to will it back to its original enormous size, to restore it to the great seat it once was. The thought barely forms before the throne shrinks further, down to roughly 3 meters in diameter, and stops. It will not go smaller. He tries to lift it with both foreclaws. It is immovable. The full strength of a level 5 early stage ant king cannot shift it even slightly. Can't carry it? His mind shifts. He tries to will it lighter, no response. He tries rolling it, and the throne actually rumbles into motion, rolling steadily along. Thorn lights up with excitement. He glances at the opening in the wall. Still can't get it out through there though. He tries one more thing, willing it to fly, and the Dominion Throne actually lifts off the ground. Thorn guides the throne through the wall opening and out of the room. He then makes several trips back and forth on foot, carrying out all his silk pouches and winter provisions, loading everything onto the throne. Packing done. Thorn sprawls contentedly on the cushioned seat, gnawing on a strip of jerky with both foreclaws, steering the Dominion Throne along the corridor with his mind, gliding straight out of the starship, flying low and unassuming over the ground, back toward his territory. All 3 cypress life seeds are safe and undisturbed. Thorn carries his silk pouches into the storage chamber of his nest. He carefully stores the newly cultivated 4th life seed, a giant cypress, setting it aside to be planted when spring arrives. Now that he is level 5, he may once again choose a plant seed to cultivate as a life seed. After careful consideration, he chooses an emerald cypress seed. The remaining time, Thorn devotes entirely to studying the throne. The Dominion Throne can fly, but its speed is limited, seemingly tied to the strength of his own mental focus. The throne can store primal energy. Directing its flight draws from those reserves, yet the amount stored appears limitless, and whenever Thorn rests on the cushion, the throne automatically releases primal energy to envelop him, aiding his cultivation. Thorn also attempts to activate the emissary function multiple times, but each time it shuts down due to his poor physical condition. The toll of advancing to level 5 is clearly to blame. 3 days later he tries again, still no success, but his condition has improved from poor to below average. 5 more days pass. On yet another attempt, the familiar blue light sweeps across him. The response comes: emissary, sentinel, strength type, replication in progress. An instant later, an invisible pull rises from the cushion beneath him, lasting 4 or 5 seconds before fading. Emissary sentinel generation complete. Entering primal energy incubation. Phase 1. Thorn feels utterly drained, all 6 limbs weak. He takes a long while to recover before he can stand. He crawls off the throne and drops to the floor, makes his way into the storage room, eats several strips of jerky, and rests for the better part of a day before he is himself again, equal parts amazed and uneasy. He climbs back onto the Dominion Throne and reaches out with his mind. No new instructions come. After thorough examination, he finds nothing wrong. There appears to be no harm done. Anticipation builds in Thorn, and the next day brings this: Emissary Sentinel entering primal energy incubation. Phase 2. Continue. Thorn dashes to the storage room, selects 2 strips of jerky and sets them close at hand, then chooses yes. The blue light sweeps over him, and once again, a great surge of his vitality is drawn away. With the previous experience behind him, Thorn is unhurried. He picks up a strip of jerky and eats, rests until he is fully restored, which takes the better part of a day, then settles quietly on the Dominion Throne to wait. Another day passes. Emissary Sentinel entering primal energy incubation. Phase 3. Continue. The same 2 options, yes or no. Thorn chooses yes, eats, recovers, and waits. On the 4th day, Emissary Sentinel generation complete. There is a stir at the back of the Dominion Throne. Thorn beats his wings and drops to the ground, moving around to look. Near the center of the previously seamless spherical surface, a small hexagonal opening has appeared. Inside it rests a white spherical bead, carrying the pulse of life and the breath of primal energy. This looks exactly like an ant egg. Thorn studies it for a long while. With a thought, an invisible force of primal energy nudges the bead out. He extends a foreleg to catch it, and turns it over in his grasp, examining it from every angle. It's alive. This is unmistakably an ant egg. The throne's so-called emissary generation draws energy from me. To produce an egg, it's replicating the racial ability of the ant kind and the wind kind. By mastering the Dominion Throne, even I, a solitary male, have effectively gained the ability to lay eggs. Thorn places the egg carefully on the ground, turns the matter over in his mind again and again, and finds that many of his earlier questions have found their answers. Yet the most fundamental question still eludes him. How did I gain control of the Dominion Throne in the first place? Was it because I evolved on top of it? No way to be certain. What cannot be worked out is best set aside, for now. Thorn gently picks up the egg and carries it to a corner of his sleeping chamber, setting it down and gazing at it with quiet delight for a moment. Then, thinking it over, he decides he is not comfortable leaving it there. He picks it up again and places it on the Dominion Throne. He reaches out to the throne with his mind, and the message comes again. Please select emissary type, sentinel, strength, or cultivator, agriculture. Sentinel, cultivator, what exactly is the difference? Soldier ant, the first egg was a sentinel, drains his vitality under 2. The quantity must refer to how many eggs are produced per cycle. Each egg drains his vitality, even 1 is a strain. 2 would likely be more than he can bear. Thorn prudently selects 1. The blue light sweeps over him. Physical condition below average, nutritional and physical reserves depleted. Please replenish promptly and engage in moderate exercise. Emissary function disabled. All told, Thorn spends 3 days, producing a single egg, with a rest period in between due to his below average condition. The Dominion Throne may require 4 or 5 days, perhaps longer, to produce each egg, nowhere near the output of a female ant king. It comes from a civilization beyond the stars. Surely the soldier ants the Dominion Throne produces should be stronger than those raised by a female ant king, or could they be weaker? It's only an imitation after all. That's entirely possible. Thorn feels he has grasped the logic connecting the 3, the throne, himself, and the eggs, and allows himself a brief moment of disappointment, before rallying once more. At the very least, he can use the Dominion throne to raise fighters and workers for his territory. Only with worker ants to command can he truly be worthy of the title Ant King. 2 more days of rest pass before his condition recovers sufficiently. He activates the Dominion throne's emissary function and begins incubating the second egg. Just then, a new problem presents itself. The winter cold is severe, and the first egg's development has slowed to nearly a standstill. So Thorn sets to work digging into the rock, boring deeper into the mountainside, following the guidance of his inherited racial memory, carving out a warm, humid, and clean incubation chamber. One morning, with nothing pressing to do, he is scurrying across loose rubble and emerging from a damp tunnel entrance, when the crown sense atop his head picks up a subtle shift in the light and shadow nearby. Instinctively, Thorn looks up. A flash of brilliance streaks overhead. A mantis, wings fully spread. An orchid mantis warrior, her carapace blazing with vivid, jewel-like colors. Like a living orchid in full bloom, she spots the disturbance below and wheels around in an instant. Touching down 4 or 5 meters from the burrow entrance, their eyes meet. Thorn searches his inherited memory and identifies her at once, a rare orchid mantis. But what is one doing here? Mantises are naturally far larger than ants. She must be a junior warrior, level 8 or 9 by his estimate. While Thorn sizes her up, the orchid mantis warrior tilts her head and stares back at him with open curiosity. An ant? The words come through her psychic link, halting and unpolished. Thorn replies that he is a giant-headed ant. At first he assumed she had been sent by some caravan to survey primal energy fluctuations on the Ashen Continent. One exchange is enough to rule that out. She has nothing to do with any caravan. An orchid mantis could never survive on the Myriad Kingdoms continent, where ant clans and wind clans hold dominion. That leaves only one possibility. She was born here on the Ashen Continent and has survived here entirely alone. From just that single exchange, Thorn has already pieced together her origins, and through her psychic presence, he reads her emotions with sharp clarity. No hostility, just a flicker of instinctive caution, brimming curiosity, and unmistakable surprise and delight. "Are you a male?" the orchid mantis warrior asks after a moment's thought. Thorn nods. She is puzzled as to why he would plant his life seed sapling in a place like this. "The primal energy here is so thin. Don't you have any clan elders to shelter you?" The answer is obvious enough. Thorn answers honestly, though reluctantly. He knows he is no match for her, and with his life seed right there beside him, running is not an option. His only move is to keep things peaceful. Thorn takes the initiative. "My name is Thorn. That sapling is a giant cedar, my first life seed plant. What is your name?" The orchid mantis warrior considers for a moment, then responds. She turns the question back on him. "Molan. My first life seed is a stone orchid, so I suppose my name should be Molan." Thorn is speechless. Who would choose such a practically useless plant for a life seed? "And your second life seed?" All the ones Molan passed over were stone orchids too. Thorn is left with nothing to say. This is what happens when there are no elders to guide you. A newly born warrior knows so little. Whatever seed catches the eye gets picked, just like that, with no understanding that the choice of life seed determines future territorial yield, and is the single most important decision in a warrior's growth and evolution. This orchid mantis warrior is already at a serious disadvantage. But wait, Thorn reconsiders, and something does not add up. A junior orchid mantis warrior only lives around 15 years. He can sense that this Molan is still young, so how has she evolved all the way to level 8 or 9? Is the primal energy in your territory plentiful? Thorn asks what is on his mind. Yes, the peak where I live is rich with it. Everywhere else is barren. Molan tells him without the slightest hesitation. Molan raises a scythe arm and points toward the east where the morning sun is just rising. "Fly that way and there is almost none at all." Thorn nods in agreement. "Where do you live? Is it far? What brings you to a barren hillside like this? Are you hunting or searching for a good plant to use as a life seed while it's winter?" Molan raises a hand and points south. "I live over that way, quite far from here. I came looking for a divine seed, and along the way I've been searching for orchid varieties I don't yet have in my territory. In an environment this starved of primal energy, a divine seed simply cannot grow." Thorn offers the warning with good intentions. Through their casual conversation, Thorn learns Molan's level and her life seeds. His time with the Ember Spider caravan has taught him a great deal. From Molan he picks up genuinely useful information. Though she is, without question, a complete chatterbox, she is endlessly curious about everything on Thorn's side of things, and all the while she quietly sweeps her psychic sense into the burrow. "Are you digging a burrow? What is that?" Molan blurts out the question on impulse. Thorn's guard goes up immediately. Then Molan waves her 2 forelegs and gestures. She has spotted the brilliantly colored Ember Spider silk pouches stuffed with food. That is what caught her eye. Thorn lets out a quiet breath of relief. Silk pouches, woven by the Ember Spider clan. It is their innate racial gift. Molan has never encountered an Ember Spider in person. She knows them only from inherited memory. "Are they traveling merchants of the Ember Spider clan? Do any of them pass through your territory? Could you introduce me? I have primal energy food I could trade." Molan is visibly excited. Her orchid-like wings spread open instinctively. Thorn lowers his head and says nothing. This orchid mantis warrior, born on the Ashen Continent and grown up entirely alone, she has probably never encountered another creature in her life. No elders, no clan, not even a clear understanding of her own situation. She is just as alone as he is. Molan. It is the first time Thorn has said her name. His tone turns grave. "This continent is called the Ashen Continent. You already know that traveling east leads to a wasteland with no primal energy. Nothing that relies on it can survive there. The truth is, the Ashen Continent is in a period of primal energy dormancy. Out here there may only be the 2 of us, or perhaps a handful of other insect warriors, but very few, if any. We have been left behind." Thorn raises raises a foreleg and points to the towering divine barrier stretching up into the sky. Then he traces a circle in the dirt. The world we live on is a great sphere, a planet. The nature gods use these divine barriers to divide the continents. This line here is the equator. Thorn recounts what Orn explained about the division of continents, and his theory about the cyclical dormancy of primal energy, and tells her about the newly built wreckage passage and his own origins. Once the two have grown comfortable with each other, they fly up together to the peak and survey the land in all directions. The Myriad Kingdom's continent is so rich with primal energy. There must be so many divine seeds growing there. This little mantis has a singular fixation on divine seeds. Thorn has no response. Seeing Thorn stay silent, Molin points to the sparse flatlands below and asks, "Thorn, is that where the Ember Spider caravan gathers?" Thorn confirms it. Every spring, when flowers blanket the land, the Ember Spider caravans that have traveled through the Myriad Kingdom's continent gather here. Different caravans take different routes and carry different primal energy goods. Here they trade among themselves, each filling the gaps in the other's inventory, broadening the range of what each caravan has to offer. So they only come in spring? It's winter now. Molin shifts tack and makes a proposal. "Thorn, let's search for divine seeds together." Thorn's tone turns sharp. This area belongs exclusively to the Ember Spider caravan. Standing on the hill and looking is one thing, but the surrounding land is the territory of King Bieli, a lord-tier giant ridged ant king, with soldier ants patrolling and hunting nearby at all times. If we are spotted, we are dead. Molin has inherited considerable memory about ant clans. The warning frightens her. "Can't we at least travel along the edge of the divine barrier?" she asks, reluctant to give up. Thorn shakes his head. Ant clans are vast in number. Even in winter, they will have sent out their swarms to search for divine seeds. On the Myriad Kingdom's continent, territorial competition is fierce. Ant kings are in constant conflict with one another, so every ant kingdom treats any foreign insect that crosses into their territory as something to be killed on sight. Molin grasps the danger now. She nods and decides she will not be wandering off on her own. Back and forth they talk, and an entire day slips away. After seeing Molin off, Thorn rests briefly, then works through the night to keep building the ant nest. The next morning, Thorn is resting at the burrow entrance, when, right on cue, Molin turns up again. She asks with a playful lilt, "Thorn, is the nest finished yet?" Thorn waves a foreleg. "Several more days at least." Molin gently sets down a bamboo tube she has been carrying. "This is primal energy food, a gift." Thorn perks up and waves his antennae in polite thanks. He pulls out the dry grass stoppered in the opening. Inside are dozens of plump, primal, energy-rich orchid seeds of exceptional quality. It is clear that Molin has managed her territory well, and the concentration of primal energy on her peak must be far, far greater than anything on this barren little hill of his. But with an orchid herb as your life seed, the yield must be very low. "Giving me this much, what will you do for yourself?" Thorn feels genuinely uneasy about it. "I have already eaten plenty." Molin, for her part, looks a little guilty too, and is clearly frustrated with herself. "I have already eaten all the orchid seeds my territory produced this year. When the caravan arrives in spring, I will have nothing left to trade." "Molin, thank you for the gift." Thorn restoppers the bamboo tube with the dry grass. He ducks into the storage room, clears out a silk pouch, and brings it out. A silk pouch woven by the Ember Spider clan. It seals out water and fire and locks in primal energy. "I want you to have it. Pack next year's orchid seeds in here and they will keep for a very long time." Molin is overjoyed. She takes the pouch, holds it up, turns it over, and cannot hide how much she loves it. She had come all this way at dawn with primal energy food precisely because she was hoping for something in return. Something like a small, exquisite, brilliantly colored silk pouch. Now that she has exactly what she wanted, Molin is absolutely delighted and terrified he might take it back. "Thorn, get back to work. I am off to keep looking for divine seeds. I will pass by here on my way back this afternoon and we can talk then." And with that, she snatches up the silk pouch and scurries off. It is just a silk pouch. Was all that really necessary? Thorn stands there for a moment, speechless. Then he takes out the orchid seeds from the bamboo tube and carries them into the nest one by one. A stone orchid life seed produces food that strengthens the digestive system. The innate racial gift of the orchid mantis clan lies in nurturing life seeds within their carapace, and the food produced carries an effect that enhances carapace coloration. Combined, the orchid seeds from Molin's stone orchid life seed carry two enhancement effects: strengthened digestion and improved carapace color. For a mantis warrior, that is a fairly weak combination. Eat too many and the effects actually work against you. But for an ant king, especially for Thorn, these orchid seeds are without doubt the finest primal energy food he could ask for. Generating ant eggs through the Dominion Throne consumes vast reserves of nutrients and physical energy stored in his body. For an ant king, the more robust the better. That afternoon, Molin does not come as promised. Thorn assumes she took a different route home and thinks nothing more of it. The next morning, the Dominion Throne responds. Emissary cultivator, agricultural unit complete. Just as before, a hexagonal honeycomb-like opening appears at the back of the Dominion Throne, and inside it sits a single ant egg. Compared to the sentinel and cultivator eggs, this one is identical in size, shape, and color. Only the faint primal energy signature it gives off is slightly different. Whether the sentinel corresponds to the soldier ants of a giant-headed ant kingdom and the cultivator to the worker ants is difficult to say for now, but the answer will not be hard to find. Once they develop into adults, everything will be plain to see. Without dwelling on it further, Thorn immediately attempts to activate the emissary function. As expected, a blue light scans him. Physical conditions suboptimal. He eats 3 more orchid seeds and lies down on the Dominion Throne to rest and recover. As dust settles and the sky darkens, Molin's psychic call reaches him at the burrow entrance. Thorn leaps off the throne and trots out of the nest. Molin opens the silk pouch with easy familiarity, rummages inside, and produces 5 cedar cones. "These are fragrant cedar. Do you have any, Thorn?" Thorn shakes his head. Seeing this, Molan gives him all the fragrant cedar seeds. Thorn thanks her. Think nothing of it. Molan raises a hand and points north. I flew along the edge of the divine barrier all the way in that direction and found a large mountain. I spotted fragrant cedar on the slopes and picked some seeds for you while I was there. Unfortunately, for all its size, that mountain has very little primal energy. Molan then asks whether Thorn knows Orin from the caravan well. Thorn confirms it, but familiarity is one thing. Goods still require spirit cores in payment. Molan does not have a single spirit core to her name, and has eaten through all of this year's primal energy food besides. She asks curiously how Thorn came to have so many rare seeds. Thorn pats his chest with a quiet laugh. Payment for work I did when the caravan was trading in the Iron Mountain Mid-King's territory. Whenever they enter a prosperous Insect King's territory, the caravan gets exceptionally busy. I helped with the accounting and calculations. Orin paid me accordingly. Molan cannot help but exclaim, Thorn, you are impressive. Then she asks with great enthusiasm whether there are many Mantis kingdoms as well. Of course, on the Myriad Kingdoms continent, Mantis clans are among the great and powerful. I have visited 5 Mantis kingdoms with the caravan. Thorn speaks at length, talking on until dark, when Molan finally takes her leave with obvious reluctance. Thorn has spent an entire day communicating through psychic link, telling stories. By evening he has no energy left to keep digging, and collapses into a deep sleep on the Dominion throne. The very next morning, barely light, Molan is back. Molan, you are heading north to search for divine seeds today, aren't you? I was planning to go, but I thought I would stop by here first. Molan appears not to catch the implication at all. Yesterday you were talking about the Myriad Clans continent the whole time. You have not told me about the Myriad Kingdoms continent yet. The Myriad Kingdoms continent is nothing but ant kingdoms, bee kingdoms, and termite kingdoms. There is not much to say. Thorn narrows his eyes. Molan steps forward and tugs at his foreleg. Then tell me more about the creations of the architect civilization. That works too. Thorn is at a loss for words. What a crafty little bug. Thorn gathers his thoughts. Then let me tell you about the most extraordinary creation of the architect civilization. The story begins roughly 4,000 years ago. Before he knows it, another morning has passed. By all appearances, she has no intention of leaving in the afternoon either. Thorn is puzzled. He has not seen Molan eat anything. He asks out of curiosity. I ate yesterday. Molan's answer leaves Thorn thoroughly bewildered. 1 meal and she is not hungry for 3 days? Thorn grows even more confused. What could possibly sustain someone for 3 days on a single meal? Could this be a natural gift unique to orchid mantises? Molan suddenly remembers and lights up. She fans her wings vigorously. Thorn, I have a divine seed, a honey scent orchid. Its enhancement effect is overall endurance. Thorn freezes, his antennae twitching rapidly. She has a divine seed with an overall endurance enhancement? That is a major sub-branch of general constitution. One of the enhancements Thorn needs most urgently, and one of the most prized effects sought by every insect clan. No wonder she has been so fixated on searching for divine seeds. She already has one. But on the Ashen continent, primal energy only exists in thin traces near the divine barrier. Any distance from it and there is none at all. How could a divine seed possibly have grown here? It makes no sense. Thorn is deeply puzzled. Where did Molan find it? It turns out the seed is on the very mountain where Molan lives, planted the year before last. This year's honey scent orchid yield was still small, and she ate every seed the moment she harvested them. Next year the yield will certainly be larger. I can share some with you. Thorn is stunned for a long moment before he composes himself. Really? That is wonderful news. Thank you in advance, Molan. At this moment Thorn finds himself deeply curious about where Molan actually lives. Is your mountain far from here? Very far, Molan says, tilting her head, then quickly backtracks. Not far at all. Not even a little. Molan extends an enthusiastic invitation. Would you like to visit my territory? The mountain I live on is enormous. I think you really should come and see it. If you find it suitable, you could consider relocating there. We could live together and talk whenever we like. Thorn nods and accepts Molan's invitation. Very well. I want to see that honey scent orchid divine seed of yours. Molan is even more excited than he is and urges him at once. Then let's go. Now. And so, an ant and a mantis set off together. At last, a vast mountain range stretching to the southwest comes into view. Thorn's reason for agreeing goes beyond curiosity. He's looking for a suitable place to build a proper new nest. Thorn angles downward and lands on a large boulder on the hillside, surveying the landscape from the elevated vantage point. Molan seems to read his intent. Are you looking for a place suited to incubating and transferring eggs in winter? She had been peeking after all. She had seen the Dominion throne and the ant eggs. Thorn nods. Molan raises a hand and points into the distance. In winter, the southern face of the mountain stays relatively warm. You could build your nest there. I live on the northern side. Thorn agrees on the spot, while quietly sensing the flow of natural primal energy around them. They are not far from the range now, yet the primal energy diffusing outward is faint, barely noticeable. Molan, is the primal energy concentration on your peak truly high? Thorn asks again. Molan is not sure. She has little frame of reference for primal energy, so she cannot say with confidence. The afternoon approaches quickly. Noticing that Thorn is beginning to flag, Molan gives a slightly guilty smile. It is a little far. A little? It is very far. And then it hits him. Molan had arrived at his territory at first light this morning. She must have set out in the middle of the night. She had become so captivated by his stories that the long flight back and forth had become too much of a burden, so she had warmly invited him to move here instead. Thorn cannot figure out why only the area where Molan lives has a notably high concentration of primal energy, while the rest of the range remains so barren. He cannot work it out, so he lets it go. Having found an excellent territory for survival and growth, he heads back to his old territory at Molan's urging, and begins making preparations to move. Molan opens the silk pouch, and offers her advice. Dig up one of your cedar life seeds first, wrap it in the silk pouch and I will carry it for you. Thorn pauses for 2 seconds. No need for all that trouble. There is an architect civilization artifact inside my nest, did you notice it? Mullen scratches the side of her face. That must be your secret. You never brought it up, so I did not feel it was my place to ask. Are you going to tell me about it? Thorn nods. Of course, it is no secret I need to keep. It's called the Dominion Throne. Its primary function, simply put, is producing eggs. Mullen hears this and goes blank. So the eggs in your nest were produced by the Dominion Throne? Then what about your own eggs? Are you not an ant king? Now it is Thorn's turn to be confused. I am a male ant king. How would a male produce eggs? It turns out Mullen's inherited memory never specified. It only said that ant kings can produce eggs, without clarifying that the king must be female. With that settled, Thorn ducks into the nest. He carefully lifts the 2 ant eggs resting on the cushion, and places them safely in a chamber. Then he commands the Dominion Throne to shrink and fly, and guides it out of the nest. Mullen finds it fascinating. It can shrink and fly, but it has no wings. But after all the extraordinary architect civilization creations Thorn has described, she finds she is not truly surprised. With everything in order, Mullen hops onto the cushion of the throne alongside him, and they drift southward at an unhurried pace. 2 days of busy work follow. The first storage chamber is roughly carved out, and the eggs are temporarily settled inside. Digging continues deeper. An ant nest is a precise undertaking. It must breathe, yet retain warmth and moisture. The tunnels cannot run straight. They must wind and curve. After 7 days of work, Thorn finally carves out the sleeping chamber. Not wanting to lose any more time, Thorn activates the emissary function of the Dominion Throne. He selects Cultivator Agricultural once again. He urgently needs a batch of worker ants to tend the life seeds and manage the steady flow of eggs to come. Digging continues, and after another 7 days, the hatching chamber leading deep into the mountain is complete. By this point, the first 2 ant eggs have hatched successfully and entered the larval stage. They require feeding at regular intervals. Mullen promised the chance to join Thorn in commanding the ant colony to explore the starship, and to receive the Dominion Throne upon its discovery, has been helping out at his nest ever since. Now that the nest is built, she also helps tend the 3 cedar life seed trees, heads down the mountain to hunt on schedule each day, and brings back fresh food. In their spare time, Thorn generously shares stories of his travels across the continents, along with techniques for managing a territory that go beyond what inherited memory provides. The Dominion Throne does indeed replicate the function of an ant clan's queen. The eggs it produces, develop through exactly the same process as those produced by a female ant queen. The larvae that hatch from the eggs are semi-primal energy life forms. They eat voraciously, grow rapidly, and change visibly by the day. Thorn carves marks into the stone wall to track the days. The first 2 ant eggs reach the 38th day. The larvae, which began as tiny specks barely a centimeter long, have grown to 2 or 3 centimeters, plump and pale. The cultivator spins silk and forms a cocoon first. 2 days later, the sentinel follows, entering the final stage of development before emergence. Meanwhile, Thorn operates on a 5-day cycle, continuously generating eggs through the Dominion Throne's emissary function. The hatching chamber now holds 2 eggs and 6 larvae of varying sizes. He spends most of his time in the hatching chamber, feeding the larvae in rotation while using his body's vibration mode to generate steady warmth and raise the humidity and temperature. Another larva has cocooned? Mullen arrives at the nest mid-morning. On her way, she hunted for food, and she lays a frog carcass at the burrow entrance. Thorn nods. Yes, all going well. It will become a soldier ant dedicated to combat. Mullen scratches her head. The larvae look so small, my inherited memory tells me that the giant-headed ant clan can produce soldier ants even larger than the king himself. Can the eggs produced through the Dominion Throne actually achieve that? Thorn cannot say with complete certainty, but from what he has seen so far, the results are promising. The giant-headed ant clan has the most extreme caste differentiation of any ant clan. Thorn is currently level 5 and has awakened 7 forms of inherited memory for controlling worker ant differentiation through pheromones: minor worker, median worker, major worker, minor soldier, median soldier, major soldier, and specialized soldier, without pheromone intervention. The result is median workers or median soldiers. The 2 cocoons currently forming are both median. Thorn is currently applying pheromone control to attempt raising specialized soldiers and minor workers. It is working. Clear differentiation is already visible in the larval stage. The specialized soldier is enormous in build, consumes a great deal of food, and grows quickly as a larva, but its development cycle is longer. The minor worker is smaller, eats less, and grows more slowly as a larva, but its development cycle is shorter. Thorn's preliminary estimate, counting from the egg stage, is that raising a specialized soldier to maturity will take over 60 days in total, while a minor worker may take only around 30. Thorn, when will we be able to go and explore the starship? Mullen asks. Thorn has already benefited from the starship and is just as eager to explore it, but it cannot be rushed. He chooses his words carefully. The weather has been warming lately. Spring is nearly here. Mullen, did you bring your life seeds for planting? Mullen says yes. A frost orchid life seed I nurtured when I was a level 8 junior warrior. The timing was off and I never managed to plant it. Thorn has a giant cedar life seed of his own. He plans to plant it this spring. Let us plant them as soon as possible and watch over them through the most vulnerable seedling stage. By then we should be ready to set out. Mullen frowns, thinking it over. We still have to tend the life seeds and spring is going to be so busy. Do we even have anything to trade with the caravan? Mullen, that incorrigible chatterbox, never stops for a moment. Thorn shakes his head. But can we at least go and have a look? Mullen blinks at him hopefully. Thorn agrees without hesitation. We will go together and see. Yes! Mullen cheers, practically bouncing with excitement. Thorn first fashions a bucket from a bamboo tube, places the seeds inside to soak, as his inherited memory indicates that soaked seeds germinate faster. Hearing this, Mullen fans her wings and darts off, only to return shortly after, hurrying back with her silk pouch. Thorn, this is my frost orchid life seed. I dug it back up. Could you soak it for me? And here are all the orchid seeds I collected last autumn and winter. I plan to follow your method, and open 2 seedbeds to cultivate them together. Thorn, would you soak all of these for me as well? Thorn is speechless. Fortunately, these primal energy seeds are exceptionally hardy. Otherwise, in her hands, their survival would be far from guaranteed. After Thorn's giant cedar life seed is thoroughly soaked in warm water, it is planted in the soil and sprouts successfully the very next day. After the first clear day following rain, as temperatures rise, the 3 transplanted cedar life seed saplings, giant cedar, round cedar, and spine cedar, begin sprouting new growth one after another, entering a vigorous new growth phase for the year. Frogs and snakes rouse from their winter sleep and begin their new season of hunting. Hidden insect eggs start to hatch. The calls of birds, insects, and beasts fill the mountain without pause. Predators that have gone hungry all winter grow increasingly restless. Thorn sets out with his sole major worker, on a slope several hundred meters from the nest. He cuts thorn branches from a clump of crimson thorn vine and uses the enlarged Dominion throne to haul them back, building a defensive perimeter around the newly planted giant cedar life seed. Mullen finishes tending her own territory and comes to help, carrying large stones to place around the perimeter for reinforcement. At the same time, Mullen increases her hunting output. Whatever cannot be eaten is buried in pits near the life seed plants to decompose as compost. Spring brings light rain every few days. It is the season of growth for all living things. Thorn's cedar life seeds shoot up a little more with each passing day, growing strong. The first specialized soldier finally breaks free of its cocoon, nearly twice Thorn's size, fierce and formidable. Around the same time, a major soldier also emerges. Thorn sends them both out to stand guard over the giant cedar saplings. At this point, the nest holds 5 minor workers, 4 median workers, 2 major workers, 1 median soldier, 1 major soldier, and 1 specialized soldier. The numbers are still small, but the range of casts is nearly complete. In terms of territorial defense, the specialized soldier is without question the strongest, the trump card of the giant-headed ant clan. Going forward, the Dominion throne will split egg production evenly between sentinel and cultivator types. Thorn will raise only 2 varieties from here on, specialized soldiers and median workers. Through the busy spring season, the territory's development moves forward steadily and at pace. The second hatching chamber is completed and named the soldier hatching chamber. The original first chamber is named the worker hatching chamber. Stimulating eggs and larvae with pheromones to differentiate into distinct castes is an extraordinarily complex process. Separating them into 2 types with dedicated chambers prevents the pheromone signals from interfering with each other. The Ember Spider clan caravan entered the Myriad Kingdoms continent at the end of winter, and after roughly 80 days, when blossoms cover every slope and valley, they complete the first half of the trade route and gather on the eastern side of the Myriad Kingdoms continent. Mullen locks onto the key information with precision. She looks left and right, up and down. Blossoms covering every slope. That means they're already there. Are we leaving tomorrow? She turns and looks at Thorn's giant cedar life seed. It has already passed through the most vulnerable seedling stage, and with soldier ants guarding it, it should be quite safe. Thorn signals her not to rush. Koss's caravan travels slowly and always arrives later than the others, so they can wait a few more days before setting out. Mullen cheers, then immediately asks, Thorn, what preparations do we need to make? Thorn tells her to prepare whatever goods she plans to trade with the caravan. The trip may take several days, so before leaving, the life seed plants must be properly secured, and above all, never reveal the existence of the Honeyscent Orchid Divine Seed, nor let slip that there is a place in this mountain range with an unusually high concentration of natural primal energy. Mullen tilts her head, puzzled. In matters like these, Mullen still does not quite understand the ways of the world. The primal energy food from a divine seed is far too valuable. If word reaches any of the nearby ant kingdoms, it would mean utter destruction for the 2 of them. Mullen is shaken. She had no idea the creatures out there could be so ruthless. At the same time, Mullen urges Thorn to keep the Dominion throne well hidden. It must never come to the attention of other insects. They will kill you and take it. As night falls, Mullen, having glimpsed the darkness of the world for the first time, makes her way home heavy with worry. Ant clans and bee clans are ruthless, and the Ember Spider clan is already making its way into the Myriad Kingdoms continent to trade. For safety, a Spider King must lead the caravan. Every member must hold at least a Hill Lord rank. Orin travels to the Myriad Kingdoms continent once every 2 years under Koss's lead. Through Orin, Thorn has come to know Koss as well. Thorn gave his own silk crystal pouch to Mullen, and plans to borrow one from Koss. Before dawn breaks, Thorn is already up. He settles the affairs of his territory, then takes to the air and crosses the mountain range. He arrives at the cave where Mullen lives, and calls for her to set off. By nightfall, they finally enter the Myriad Kingdoms continent. Thorn stands on a hillside and gazes out. The flatlands below are packed with Ember Spider caravans, looking down at the massive, reddish-brown spiders, clustered in groups below. Mullen feels a sudden pang of fear. Will they hurt us? Thorn signals her not to worry. Ember Spider caravans never attack other insect clans without provocation. Koss takes a longer route, so he likely hasn't arrived yet. Thorn sways his antennae. We've been flying all day. You must be exhausted. Let's rest the night and check again at dawn. Mullen follows Thorn back into the passage. They shelter inside the battered iron sky vessel and rest through the night. The next morning, Thorn is up early again, standing at the hilltop and scanning the land below. Mullen, a little braver now, tucks herself beneath a patch of thorny brush at the side of the hilltop. She watches for any movement below. It isn't until midday that a familiar figure comes into view, Koss, leading the caravan. 8 Ember Spider Hill Lords follow behind him, and 3 Ember Spider Domain Lords bring up the rear. There he is. Thorn alerts Mullen. His antennae sweep through the air as one foreleg points the way. Thorn doesn't rush down the hill. The caravan has only just arrived. One by one, powerful Ember Spiders make their way to Koss, seeking talks and deals. It isn't until mid-afternoon that Koss finally finishes. The aura Koss radiates is genuinely intimidating, enough to make any creature hesitate. Thorn doesn't push himself. He beats his membranous wings, lifts into the air, and glides down the hill. Koss, do you remember me? Thorn fans his wings and lands carefully on the grass beside Koss, positioning himself where he can easily be seen. Of course, knows? Thorn, the clever little one. Koss remembers Thorn clearly. A young ant king with extraordinary memory and calculation ability, and a rare male at that. Koss, how is Orin doing? Thorn asks. After waiting all these days, he has been eager for news of Orin. Koss nods. I'm truly glad to see you again, young one. After we parted last year, Orin was downcast for quite a long time. He worried about your safety and your future. Koss gestures toward a distant hill. Is that orchid mantis warrior a friend you made on the Cloud Reach continent? Yes, her name is Molin. She loves orchids. We met last winter. We live side by side, keep each other company, and look out for one another. Koss smiles. That's wonderful. Orin will be very pleased to hear it. Koss, I came to ask a small favor. Molin and I need a silk crystal pouch to store our supplies. I'd like to take one on credit. When my cedar life seeds bloom and bear fruit, I'll repay you in primal energy food at an agreed value. But Koss is generous. A silk crystal pouch is worth barely a handful of spirit cores. Consider it a gift. The moment he speaks, the silk bindings on his back cargo loosen on their own. One pouch floats up on its own and drifts down to rest at Koss's feet. It is the smallest pouch he carries, but for Thorn, it is more than enough. Thorn thanks him warmly, buzzing his wings as he lands. He hoists the rolled-up pouch, several times his own size, high above him. Perfect, just right. Glad it fits, it'll suit that mantis warrior just fine. Koss sees it plainly. Thorn came for the pouch on Molin's behalf. Thank you, Koss. Thorn thanks him once more. Worried that Molin is growing anxious on the hillside, he asks Koss to pass his greetings on to Orin before leaving. He and Molin have been waiting here for 5 days. Now they must hurry back to their territory. Just then, Koss calls him back. He asks about the state of primal energy recovery on the Cloud Reach continent. Thorn shakes his head. Same as before over there. Koss then reaches over his back and draws out 5 spirit cores. This year it's our caravan's turn to go and check. I won't need to send anyone else then. This is your payment. As he speaks, the silk crystal pouch Thorn holds aloft opens on its own. With a sharp snap it unfurls, and silk threads carry the 5 spirit cores down into the pouch. Watching Thorn strain under the effort, Koss smiles. Thorn, can you manage all that? Thorn is overjoyed. Absolutely, he declares with firm conviction. Right away, 2 or 3 dozen pouches loaded with primal energy food. Open one after another. Countless silk threads sway like tentacles, lifting one piece of each variety of primal energy food and depositing them into Thorn's pouch. Now with all that primal energy food added, can you still carry it? Ember spitter merchants never deal without profit. This I credit to you on Orin's behalf. You'll repay it in the future with cedar seeds from your own territory. Thorn understands. Koss is making an investment in him. He meets Koss's gaze and gives a firm, deliberate nod. The scene shifts. Thorn grips the 2 carrying cords of the now bulging pouch and hauls it forward with great effort. It isn't that 5 spirit cores and 30-odd pieces of primal energy food weigh so much. The pouch itself is simply enormous. Up on the hill, Molin watches with growing impatience. The moment she sees Thorn finally clear the open trading ground below, she leaps to her feet. She spreads her wings, glides down the hill, and calls out, "Let me help." Thorn hands the pouch over to Molin. Molin lifts it with ease, takes flight, clears the hill, and dives straight into the passage. She enters the iron sky vessel. She flies a little further inside before coming to a stop. Then she eagerly pulls the pouch open to take a look. Wow, primal energy food. Did Koss give all of this to you? Molin is even more excited than Thorn. The spirit cores are payment from Koss for my report on primal energy conditions at the Cloud Reach continent. In truth, it's his way of looking out for me. The 30-odd pieces of primal energy food are credited to me by Koss on Orin's behalf. I'll have to repay them in full, with interest. Don't let the modest appearance fool you. These are no ordinary dried seeds. Most come from the territories of domain lord-tier insect warriors, and a few are likely from insect king territories. Together they form a complete body enhancement set of primal energy food, with benefits covering every part of the body. Thorn then hands the larger silk crystal pouch over to Molin. He takes back the smaller one that had been hers. That small pouch was originally a gift to Thorn from a young ember spider in Orin's caravan. All those days of waiting, tracking down Koss to ask for a pouch. It was all so he could reclaim that small pouch from Molin. Molin is absolutely thrilled and thanks Thorn repeatedly. A silk crystal pouch isn't worth much. Molin, a single honeyscent orchid seed of yours could trade for 2 pouches like this. Watching Molin look so unbothered about her own potential, Thorn can't help but point it out. He then asks how far she still is from reaching ultimate orchid mantis warrior. Molin tilts her head and thinks carefully for a few seconds. Shouldn't be much further. Thorn intends to let Molin eat the primal energy food first. Your evolution hit a small snag. This primal energy food will help correct your current condition. Eat it and advance to ultimate warrior as soon as you can. Molin refuses. She knows Thorn needs it more than she does. Thorn sways his antennae and explains. Once you break through, the honeyscent orchid divine seed will branch out. More honeyscent orchid seeds means greater returns. It's the smarter move. When the time comes, just repay me in honeyscent orchid seeds at an agreed value. Molin finds the reasoning perfectly sound and agrees without hesitation. It takes half the afternoon to eat through less than half of the food. They rest through the night, set out at dawn. At midday, they stop to eat a few more pieces of primal energy food. After resting, they press on. Moving in fits and starts, they don't make it back to the mountain range until the following morning. The first thing they do upon returning is check on their respective life seed plants. Seeing everything intact, Thorn finally breathes easy. Molin opens the silk crystal pouch. She moves to transfer the spirit cores inside into Thorn's small pouch, but Thorn stops her. Keep those 5 spirit cores as well. At the end of autumn, when the honeyscent orchid divine seed's fruit ripens, use them then to replenish your primal energy. The honeyscent orchid seeds you produce will be of slightly better quality. Really? Molin agrees without a second thought. Deal. The 3 cedar life seeds planted last year have all grown to 4 meters tall. The giant cedar planted this year has already reached 10 meters, with specialized soldiers flanked by major and median soldiers standing guard. Before leaving, Thorn gave strict orders. No foraging far from the territory. 6 or 7 days away, and the reserve food had long since run out. The ant colony is starving. The moment Molin, who often and feeds them, lands, they swarm around her. Without missing a beat, Molan leaps skyward. She glides down toward the woodland below. She's back shortly, clutching a headless black-striped serpent. Evening comes quickly. Molan bids farewell and heads home. A full day of flying has left Thorn thoroughly exhausted. He returns to the ant nest and settles onto the Dominion throne to rest. He hasn't even fallen asleep when Molan's mental signal arrives at the cave entrance. Thorn, I'm so drowsy. I think I'm about to molt and evolve. Thorn freezes for 2 seconds, then drops to the ground at full speed, mentally commands the Dominion throne to shrink and fly, and follows it to the cave entrance. It is plain to see, Molan is on the verge of breaking through to Ultimate Orchid Mantis Warrior. Right now she is listless, barely able to keep her eyes open, almost certainly the effect of the Spider King's primal energy food. Because of it, there was not a single warning sign before the breakthrough. Thorn directs the Dominion throne into the air, crosses the mountain range, and finally sets it down at the center of the cave where Molan lives. The Dominion throne does not respond to Molan's control, but its ability to gather primal energy and aid cultivation can be used by anyone, and it seems to sense what is needed. Dense primal energy gathers around Molan, building steadily until it forms an oval white primal cocoon, glowing with a soft, hazy white light. Thorn watches the entire process unfold and feels a sudden flash of understanding. He had always wondered. His own evolution from level 4 to 5 seemed to take unusually little time in dormancy, though he hadn't been sure. Now it becomes clear. With the Dominion Throne's assistance, he had indeed completed his molten evolution in a remarkably short time. The Dominion Throne has the ability to assist evolution. For a novice warrior to evolve to Ultimate Warrior normally takes around 10 days of dormancy. During that time, any disturbance is dangerous, especially a mental force scan. Primal energy beings are highly sensitive to mental force and can be jolted awake, causing the evolution to fail mid-process. The consequences range from having to start over to death. Thorn keeps watch outside the cave where Molan rests. He peeks inside occasionally, but dares not do anything more. Not until the afternoon of the 4th day does a faint ripple of primal energy pulse from within the cave. Thorn cranes forward to look. The oval primal cocoon is rapidly collapsing and dissolving. Molan stirs from her deep sleep, still dazed, but by all appearances she has successfully advanced to Intermediate Warrior. Congratulations, Molan. With that, Thorn heads off to search for food in the nearby woodland. A level 5 novice ant king is not much of a hunter. Thorn makes several trips back and forth, catching 7 grasshoppers from the undergrowth. Molan eats them one by one, recovers a little strength, and then heads out on her own to hunt. Advancing from novice to Intermediate Warrior is a major realm breakthrough, a leap in life tier, a dramatic rise in overall power, and a lifespan extended to 30 to 50 years. The moment Molan completes her breakthrough, the Honeyscent Orchid Divine Seed responds. Overnight, the mother plant shoots up roughly 10 meters, and new buds and leaves emerge. At the same time, all 7 offshoots wither, but underground runners spread from each, generating 3 new rhizomes per offshoot, a triple rate branching. It isn't the 5-fold or 7-fold rate Thorn and Molan had hoped for, but it is far from the worst outcome. One day, and the underground runners of the new offshoots have fully formed. Another day, all 7 original offshoots and the 21 new ones have pushed out fresh shoots. One more day, the shoots reach 5 or 6 meters tall, and new tips begin to emerge. Molan's other orchid life seeds also grow and branch, but at a far slower pace. The number of offshoots is small, and their height falls well short of the divine seed. Time passes. Late spring. Thorn senses keenly that his own evolution is approaching. He gives Molan a quick word of notice. He sets aside everything he has been working on. He settles onto the Dominion throne and focuses entirely on absorbing primal energy. In less than 2 days, a heavy wave of drowsiness washes over him. He drifts into deep sleep and wakes having shed his old exoskeleton. Thorn rests on the Dominion throne. He bows his head and sifts through his memories, quickly locating the most important inherited knowledge, the cultivation of specialized workers. What use are specialized workers? Great use. Soldier ants excel at killing prey. Worker ants are better suited for digging through soil and rock. He can cultivate a batch of specialized workers and direct them to dig a reservoir within the territory, carve out water channels, and more. Level 6 novice warrior. I should now have enough stamina to support the Dominion throne producing 2 ant eggs at once. Thorn mulls it over and climbs down from the throne. This dormancy was likely short as well, and he had eaten and drunk his fill beforehand. Waking up, he feels no particularly severe weakness. Thorn's awake. Molan, keeping watch at the cave entrance, calls out and looks him over. Wow, Thorn, you're still so small. Ants are naturally smaller than mantises, and male ants smaller still than females. Having evolved to level 6 novice ant king, Thorn's body length is only around 1.6 meters. Slender and lean, at this rate of growth. Even upon reaching ultimate ant king, his length will likely never exceed 2 meters, no comparison to Molan at all. Molan then asks about the state of his life seeds. Thorn opens his mouth and produces the jade cedar seed he had been nurturing at level 5. He sways his antennae. A small worker ant scurries out, takes it back to the nest, and places it in a water-filled bamboo tube to soak. It is still spring. There is still time to plant. Giant cedar is drought and heat tolerant, so there is little concern. Molan follows up at once. Thorn, what plant will you choose as your life seed at level 6? An orchid. When Molan advanced to Ultimate Warrior, Thorn had pressed her firmly to choose a large fruit hemlock seed as her life seed. Now Molan wants to return the favor and suggests Thorn choose an orchid seed for his. Thorn is having none of it. That fragrant cedar seed you gave me last time is excellent. I've decided on that one. Thorn quickly changes the subject. Has the Honeyscent Orchid Divine Seed flowered yet? Molan shakes her head. No, far too early. I'm just worried it won't flower at all this year. Molan can communicate with her Honeyscent Orchid through mental force. When she asks, the orchid itself is uncertain whether it will bloom this year. Different orchid varieties bloom at very different times. The Molan Orchid blooms in early spring. Stone Orchid blooms at late spring, Frost Orchid at early summer, and ordinary Honeyscent Orchid not until midsummer. mid-summer. The Honeyscent Orchid Divine Seed has an earlier bloom, early summer, and has only just undergone its first branching evolution, with 28 offshoots. Now, it is uncertain whether they will manage to flower in time this year. Thorn watches its progress just as keenly as Molin does. Every few days, one of them goes to check on it. In the mildly sweltering heat of early summer, at last, under their eager and watchful eyes, all 28 offshoots of the Honeyscent Orchid push out flower spikes one after another, full and robust, looking every bit capable of flowering and setting seed. Thorn inspects them and gives his verdict. Molin cheers and tilts her head, trying to work out the numbers. If each offshoot still produces 11 flowers and each flower yields 1 seed, then this year we could harvest. Molin thinks and can't work it out. Thorn has the answer instantly. That would be 308 Honeyscent Orchid seeds. Caravans purchase each Honeyscent Orchid seed for between 5 and 8 spirit cores. The exact price depends on quality. At 5 spirit cores each, Molin's earnings this year would still reach 1,540 spirit cores. Thorn hopes that when the time comes, Molin will repay him in Honeyscent Orchid seeds worth 140 spirit cores, and then lend him a little more on top of that. Molin agrees without a moment's hesitation. It's all thanks to Thorn that she could evolve to Ultimate Warrior so quickly. She decides to split the Honeyscent Orchid seeds with him 50-50. Thorn hesitates for a moment, then accepts gladly. Molin did indeed rely on the primal energy food. That Thorn credited from costs on her behalf to advance before the season turned. But taking half outright, that feels a little too generous on her part. Thorn is a creature of principle and good conscience. He thinks it over and decides to send some soldier ants to help her hunt down the troublesome pests on her land. Then he will cultivate a batch of specialized workers and dig a fermentation pool near her territory first. Molin scratches her head. This is the first time she has ever heard of a fermentation pool. This is knowledge absent from inherited memory. Yet on the Myriad Clan's continent, nearly every insect clan has mastered this technique for producing fertilizer. Fill it with water in measured amounts, add all manner of plant matter and leaves, seal it to decompose, and what results is the nutrient-rich liquid and residue that plants need to thrive. Please select emissary type Sentinel, Strength, or Cultivator, Agriculture. Thorn selects Cultivator. Please select quantity, 1 or 2. Thorn selects 2. A blue light sweeps through. Beneath him, the Dominion Throne pulses with a sharp, brief surge. Within 10 seconds or so, a massive amount of the nutrients and energy stored in his body is drawn away. Thorn is left completely drained. It takes quite a while before he recovers even slightly. He reaches for the dried meat strips he had prepared nearby, and gnaws through 3 of them one after another, then rests again at length before his strength returns. In the blazing heat of midsummer, the 3 life seed plants Thorn sowed last year, dragon cedar, round cedar, and spine cedar, have all grown to 6 or 7 meters, now fully established saplings. The one sown early this spring, the giant cedar life seed, has shot up at remarkable speed. It has already reached close to 3 meters. The jade cedar planted at late spring now stands at over 1 meter tall. It is fenced in and guarded by soldier ants. Molin's territory is in much the same condition. With neither of them needing to worry about the safety of their life seed plants, exploring the Iron Sky vessel is now a real possibility. After a heavy downpour, Thorn takes command of the Dominion Throne, carrying 6 specialized soldiers and 3 specialized workers. 2 silk crystal pouches, 1 large, 1 small, are packed full of dried meat strips and freshly gathered wild fruit of every variety. They take to the air and enter the Iron Sky vessel. Thorn's naturally extraordinary memory has kept the complex route firmly in mind. He leads the way directly to the room where the Dominion Throne was first discovered. Molin immediately spots the opening in the wall. She fans her wings, hovers midair, peers inside, and sweeps the room with her mental force. The vast room is completely empty. Thorn steers the Dominion Throne at a slow glide. On either side, 10 enormous circular doorways are evenly spaced. Each leads to a sealed room of identical dimensions. Molin is eager and checks them one by one, only to be disappointed just as quickly. Every door has been forced open by violence, and nothing remains inside. Several hundred meters further, another junction, corridors branching left and right. Ahead is a metal door twisted and mangled by brute force, and beyond it a vertical shaft connecting the levels above and below. Inside the dark, sealed Iron Sky vessel, there are no reference markers of any kind. At a complex crossing like this, losing one's way is all too easy. Thorn, it looks like every direction leads to the same thing. The corridor to the right is lined with many rooms, rectangular single-door frames, every door panel stripped away. Molin runs ahead and checks each room in turn, met with disappointment every time. Molin leads the way right, moving swiftly through the corridor. They enter a vast circular hall. Everything that couldn't be removed has been destroyed, and nothing is left. There is an exit on the far side of the hall. They press on, the same pattern repeating, junctions, corridors, and empty rooms. Thorn's 6 specialized soldiers and 3 specialized workers exhaust their pheromone trail markers, and after walking a great distance further, they find themselves back at the main passage marked with the Ember Spider clan's guide trail. The corridors of the Iron Sky vessel are not only bewilderingly intricate, they connect to everywhere. Thorn and Molin retrace their steps, returning to the junction where the soldier ants were positioned to choose a new direction. They wind through passage after passage for what feels like an age. Eventually, they confirm this entire section has been thoroughly searched. Thorn gradually works out a core principle. The Iron Sky vessel belongs to the Wanderer civilization. Those Wanderers, when they laid out the vessel, likely organized it much like an ant nest. Once Thorn has this figured out, he moves decisively downward to the 2nd level. In the vault wing directly below the room where the Dominion Throne was found, the room layout is identical. The moment they draw near, the Dominion Throne abruptly transmits a message. Azure core detected. Condition critical. Initiate treatment. Thorn is startled. On instinct he selects yes. In the next instant, the Dominion Throne reacts violently. Its stored primal energy drains at speed. Highly concentrated primal force condenses into a white thread. It snakes along the ground, then climbs up the wall. It passes through a jagged hole torn in the upper wall and disappears into the room beyond. Molan, who had been draped across the Dominion Throne in idle boredom, is startled into leaping to her feet. She fans her wings and darts away. What's happening? Did you find something? Molan is stunned for a moment, then lets out a cheer and dives toward the room. Thorn is also caught off guard for 2 seconds before his mind catches up. He steers the Dominion Throne toward the room. Peering through the wide opening, the primal energy thread released by the Dominion Throne is connected to an enormous blue heart-shaped object inside the room. Whoa, is that some kind of treasure? Molan stares fixedly at the object and fires off questions one after another. Thorn has no idea either, but if it triggered the Dominion Throne's response, it must be a creation of the architect's civilization. What an enormous treasure, Molan gasps in awe. But a new question surfaces almost immediately. Can it shrink? Can it fly on its own? Thorn scratches his head. For now we can only observe and see what this thing actually does. The name of this new object in the room is apparently the Azure Core. It appears to be made of wood. Its entire surface is a deep, rich blue, covered in sapphire blue cracked primal veins. These veins are absorbing primal energy at a furious rate. Thorn simply unloads the soldier ants and worker ant along with half a pouch of food onto the ground. He commands the Dominion Throne with his mind to shrink, passes it through the opening into the room, then expands it to its fullest size and positions it beside the Azure Core. The opening is wide enough for Molan to follow. She enters and watches in fascinated silence. Thorn stands on the ground, observes for a while, and attempts to make contact with his mental force. Nothing responds. He spreads his wings and leaps up, landing on the Dominion Throne. He quiets his mind and senses the rate at which the stored primal energy is being consumed. Thorn is quietly astonished. He uses the Dominion Throne every single day, carrying all manner of things while flying and exploring. The drain on primal energy is nearly continuous, yet that consumption is negligible compared to the vast reserves the Dominion Throne holds, and yet this Azure Core has drawn away nearly half of those reserves in a brief span of time. A short while later, the Dominion Throne's stored primal energy is exhausted. Stored primal energy insufficient. Ambient primal energy insufficient. Treatment interrupted. Continue treatment? Thorn selects yes. Please select a treatment plan. Plan 1, replenish Throne's stored primal energy and continue treatment requiring 5 repetitions. Plan 2, scan to confirm the Azure Core's bondholder is deceased. Erase the original bondholder's genetic information from the Azure Core. Erase the Azure Core's primal core imprint and reset for rebirth. Thorn picks out the key information. He understands part of it, not all of it, but enough. After a brief moment of thought, he selects Plan 2 without hesitation. Primal force insufficient. Primal energy recovery in progress. The Dominion Throne feeds back a response. It begins drawing in primal energy on its own. Thorn waits in silence and waits and waits, but the Dominion Throne shows no sign of progressing. Hunger sets in hard. Thorn beats his wings, flies out of the room, and gives his antennae a shake. 2 specialized workers open the small silk crystal pouch and pull out a strip of dried meat. They tear it apart and bring it to Thorn's mouth. Another specialized worker selects from the large silk crystal pouch a ripe, soft kiwi fruit, peels it open, and a specialized soldier steps forward to cut it into small pieces. They are arranged in front of Thorn. From what the Dominion Throne has transmitted to me, the object is called the Azure Core, and it appears to be a living thing. Thorn shares what he knows so far. A living thing? Molan fires back at once. Animal or plant? Definitely not an animal. Then it must be a plant. A sudden idea strikes Molan. Doesn't it look like an absolutely enormous seed? The red U seed has primal veins on its surface. Could this be a divine seed? Thorn is caught off guard by Molan's words. If it really is a seed, just how large would the tree be? Could the architect's civilization have been a race like the Ember Spider clan? And this divine seed, was it continuously nurtured inside their life sac? Molan puts on the air of a scholar. Thorn thinks it through. A life seed 5 or 6 meters long. How large would the architect have to be? Dozens of meters, perhaps even 100. So how could they ever rest on the Dominion Throne? The Dominion Throne could never accommodate a body that size. Molan places one finger beside her nose and fixes Thorn with a knowing look. Perhaps the architect's body could not exceed the size of the Dominion Throne. Thorn dismisses the idea. A life seed 5 or 6 meters long. The architect would have to be dozens, maybe 100 meters tall. How would they ever rest on the Dominion Throne? It simply couldn't hold something that large. Molan pauses, then concedes. Right, the architect's body couldn't have exceeded the Dominion Throne. Molan pauses again, then raises a new challenge. Is there any chance that as you grow stronger and larger over time, the Dominion Throne could grow larger too? Thorn considers this, his antennae twitching several times. That is entirely possible. Molan, you're sharp. When you put it that way, everything fits. Thorn quickly finishes off the dried meat in his claws, then crouches at the opening and peers into the room. The more he looks, the more convinced he becomes. The Azure Core is an oversized seed, and with primal veins across its surface, it would qualify as a divine seed. Molan springs to her feet. She leans into the opening for a look, then circles and glides down to land beside Thorn. She raises her original question again. But a seed this large, how would we ever move it? The opening in the wall is too small, and can the room's door even be opened? A divine seed that the architect civilization nurtured time and again. What use would it be to us? As you said, the architect civilization was destroyed by the Wanderer civilization. Then the architect who nurtured the seed, are they long dead? And the seed itself, is it still alive? The Dominion Throne is consuming primal energy precisely to treat it. Thorn gives a firm answer. He suspects the Dominion Throne's ability to reset and reborn it means restoring it to its original seed form. But this is only speculation. Whether it truly is a seed, remains uncertain. The Dominion Throne continues drawing in natural primal energy, rebuilding its reserves. Thorn wants to move it out of the room and into the corridor, where primal energy flows more freely, but after repeated attempts, he is unable to make it shrink or direct it to fly. Plan 2 is underway. Will likely not begin in earnest until the stored primal energy has been fully replenished. That will take a considerable amount of time. Thorn is unwilling to sit idle and wait. He leads Molan and a group of soldier ants on foot to continue exploring the remaining vault wings on the first level of the Iron Sky vessel. Thorn now knows his way around well. In under 2 days he covers the full route. Every room has been stripped bare, nothing to be found. Returning to check on the room, the Dominion Throne has recovered only 1/4 of its primal energy. Their food supply is nearly exhausted, and this expedition has now stretched to 8 days. Thorn leaves the ant colony to guard the entrance. He and Molan leave the Iron Sky vessel and head back to their mountain territory. Under the scorching sun, heat rises in shimmering waves. The forest vegetation wilts and droops. The streams are nearly dry. In the 8 or 9 days since they last left, not a single drop of rain has fallen. Molan recalls, the year before last she faced the same situation. One glance at her life seed plants and it comes back to her at once. In the most scorching stretch of midsummer, when the sky refuses to give rain, they must carry water and irrigate by hand. Thorn takes to the air at full speed. He crosses the mountain range and returns to check on his own territory. All 5 cedar life seed plants are in poor shape. The jade cedar sapling planted at late spring is worst of all, its roots too shallow, visibly wilting. A small stream runs nearby, fed by a thin trickle of mountain spring water. The soldier ants guarding the territory are crafty enough in their own way. They know to take shade beneath the trees, but it hasn't occurred to any of them to fetch water and irrigate. The worker ants are all huddled inside the nest, doing nothing, leaving the life seeds to suffer the drought. Thorn wastes no time and leads 2 specialized soldiers down the hill. He cuts 3 large bamboo tubes and takes the soldiers to the stream to fetch water for irrigation. They make trip after trip, working through until nightfall. In one sustained effort, he gives all 5 life seed plants a thorough watering. Thorn then leads his specialized workers over the mountains to go and help at Molan's territory to the north. Among Molan's life seed plants, the Honeyscent Orchid Divine Seed alone has 28 offshoots. The land desperately in need of irrigation is vast, and they keep at it well past midnight. The next day brings another blazing cloudless sky. Molan heads down the mountain to hunt, while Thorn directs the worker ants to slice and dry the meat, and gather kiwi fruit, wild grapes, and other produce. 3 scorching days, 3 days of relentless watering, and all the life seed plants recover their vitality. Thorn and Molan quickly pack up their supplies and head back to the Iron Sky vessel, where the 6 specialized workers and 3 specialized soldiers left behind are nearly starved. The Dominion Throne has stored 3/4 of its primal energy, but the territory cannot be left unattended. Thorn decides to send Molan back first. She is reluctant, but there is no choice. Someone must tend to the plants. They settle the matter with a brief exchange, and Thorn sees Molan out of the Iron Sky vessel, remaining alone to wait. 2 days later, a message arrives from the Dominion Throne. Primal energy fully restored. The second recovery protocol, once initiated, cannot be undone. The Azure Core will lose all primal core power. Do you wish to proceed? Thorn barely hesitates. He chooses to continue. The hemispherical crest atop the Dominion Throne's backrest emits a beam of blue light, aimed directly at the Azure Core, carrying the essence of water attribute primal energy, surging and rushing like a river in full current. And within moments it envelops the Azure Core completely. The blue beam holds steady between the Dominion Throne and the Azure Core, primal energy pouring out in a continuous stream, until a glowing spherical cocoon takes shape, flooding the vast chamber with brilliant light, blue in every direction. After roughly half a day, the Dominion Throne speaks. Bond gene data erasure complete. The beam linking the Dominion Throne and the Azure Core holds firm. Then, in an instant, it reverses. Primal energy begins flowing back from the Azure Core into the Dominion Throne. Thorn, resting on the throne's cushion, jolts upright and sweeps the room with his spirit sense. Nothing unusual. He settles back down and waits in silence. 2 days later, Thorn leaves the chamber and steps out of the Iron Sky vessel. Mid-morning, Molan arrives as promised. Everything all right in the territory? How is the giant cedar life seed? Molan gives her chest a confident pat. Of course, with me looking after them, they're thriving, but there's been no rain and the mountain stream has dried up. We've had to fetch water from the great river south of the mountain. Droughts like this are common in summer across both the Myriad Clans continent and the Myriad Kingdoms continent. Thorn decides to have 2 large reservoirs dug upon their return, so they are never caught without water again. The 2 pass through the earthen tunnel in the mountainside together and enter the Iron Sky vessel, moving with practiced ease straight to the first level. Molan looks around with wide-eyed curiosity, but cannot make much sense of what she sees. They fix a time for their next meeting, and Molan sets off through the night back to the mountain range, while Thorn stays on alone. 4 days later, the rate at which the Azure Core feeds primal energy into the Dominion Throne drops noticeably. The luminous primal energy cocoon encasing the Azure Core dissolves, the sapphire blue veining on its surface fades and vanishes, and the Dominion Throne grows still. Primal Core gene erasure complete. Azure Core reborn successfully. Do you wish to form a bond? No deliberation needed. Thorn chooses to bond. The hemispherical crest of the throne's backrest projects a single thread of azure primal energy that wraps around Thorn completely, passes through his carapace and sinks into his body. A message follows. Bond complete. It is finally over. Thorn exhales a long breath and rises from the cushion. He beats his wings and circles to the back of the Dominion Throne. In the hexagonal honeycomb recess lies a hard seed roughly the size of a yew berry, shaped closer to a heart than anything else, azure blue throughout, traced with deep sapphire veining. Molan's earlier guess was exactly right. It truly is a heaven-granted seed. Thorn lands beside it, reaches out to lift it free, and cradles it in both forelimbs, turning it over with care. He scans it with his spirit sense, the life force of a plant, vibrant and full of vitality. It must be the bond at work. Thorn finds a faint thread of spirit sense connection is formed between himself and the azure core, not unlike the link he shares with a life seed. This confirms it beyond all doubt, a heaven-granted seed, without question. And the bond that the Dominion Throne has forged is much like the insect clan's life sac nurturing process. The architect civilization truly has its own formidable methods. For an insect clan member to nurture a life seed takes a full rank of growth in a shared molting, yet the Dominion Throne accomplishes the same bond effortlessly in a single moment. Still, there are clear differences between a bond and life sac nurturing. Is it worth placing the azure core into a life sac for a full nurturing cycle as well? If bond comes first and life sac nurturing follows, would the resulting life seed be stronger? Thorn turns the question over in his mind, then glances at the colossal seed across the chamber, stripped of all its primal veins now, every trace of primal energy gone. He understands now what the Dominion Throne meant by reset and rebirth. He steadies himself, cradles the newborn azure core, and lands on the throne. A quick spirit sense check. A small reserve of primal energy remains. He wills it to shrink, and it does so rapidly. He flies out of the chamber, gathers his few belongings, and guides the throne out of the iron sky vessel, heading south back toward the mountain range. Molan spots him at once and darts forward to meet him. The heaven-granted seed. Has it shrunk down to a normal seed size? Thorn confirms it with a nod, then gestures to the small silk crystal pouch. It is indeed a heaven-granted seed. At rank 8 or 9, it can be taken into the life sac for nurturing. As he speaks, a trace of guilt stirs in him. The Dominion Throne has already formed a bond between him and the azure core, much like the insect clan's life sac nurturing. He had once promised Molan he would find her, an architect civilization artifact similar to the Dominion Throne, but they have searched the iron sky vessel from end to end and found nothing else. Even so, Thorn gives Molan his word. When the time comes and resources allow, he will commission a trading caravan to purchase an architect civilization artifact for her with spirit cores. Wonderful! Thorn, you have a heaven-granted seed too now. Molan does not seem to give the earlier promise a second thought. Her entire attention is on the heaven-granted seed. She adjusts her angle of flight, lands neatly on the Dominion Throne, and pulls the silk crystal pouch open in a rush. It's beautiful, Molan breathes, lifting the azure core out and turning it over in her forelimbs, utterly absorbed. Then a thought strikes her. What kind of plant does this seed belong to? Neither of them finds any record of such a plant in their inherited memories. Thorn states it with certainty. Then it does not belong to the natural divine lineage. It is a plant unique to the architect civilization. How do you plant something from an architect civilization? Does it prefer shade or sunlight, dry or moist conditions? What kind of soil? Cold climates or hot? High on a mountain peak or down in the forest? Molan has a gift for asking exactly the right questions. In his excitement over the heaven-granted seed, Thorn has gotten a little carried away and not yet considered any of this. Yet everything Molan has raised is essential knowledge for raising a life seed plant properly. A plant from the architect civilization. Nothing in their inherited knowledge covers it. The Dominion Throne offers no guidance either, and that is a real problem. Thorn's thoughts race, and a headache begins to form. The Dominion Throne's backrest has wave patterns carved into it, and the azure core enhances water attribute abilities. The architect civilization seems to have a deep affinity with water. Thorn works through it point by point. The azure core almost certainly thrives with water. It can be planted at the water's surface. As for sunlight and soil, a heaven-granted seed will surely have considerable need for light, and it is likely adaptable to most soil types. Minor concerns. Could it grow submerged in the water, like a lotus root? Molan, as ever, finds a new angle. That is entirely possible. We can find a pond, plant it nearby, raise a seedling, and observe how it grows, determine what kind of plant it is, then transplant it to the right location. Minor soldiers are primarily for catching small pests, and life seed plants are not especially vulnerable to insects, so once the minor soldier count reaches 10, Thorn stops breeding more. Molan's territory has a greater number of life seed plants, so the first fermentation pool will be dug for her. Thorn's original plan covered both his own territory to the north and Molan's to the south. One reservoir and one fermentation pool each, plus a network of irrigation channels, already a substantial undertaking. Now, with an azure heaven-granted seed that may need to grow in water, a large pond must be prepared as well, and the scope of work explodes. Specialized workers are needed in ever greater numbers. The Dominion Throne still produces 2 ant eggs every 5 days, and Thorn raises every single one into a specialized worker. Thorn is up before dawn and back after dark, leading the ant colony and hewing through rock and earth. Molan handles hunting and tending to the life seed plants, but spends most of her time with Thorn, the two of them lying side by side on the Dominion Throne, trading idle conversation and watching the worker ants toil below. Time drifts on, summer fades, autumn arrives. By late autumn, the specialized worker count reaches 18, and the first fermentation pool is finally complete. Thorn travels far to find a slab of natural flagstone, cuts it to shape, hauls it back with the Dominion Throne, and lays it over the pool's opening to seal it for 2 months of fermentation, after which a bamboo tube tied with hemp rope can draw out the nutrient-rich liquid. Without pause, excavation begins on the second fermentation pool in Thorn's own territory. The breeding of specialized workers falls into a steady rhythm, 2 emerging every 5 days, and the workforce steadily grows. Once the specialized worker count breaks 30, and the fermentation pool site grows too crowded, Thorn splits off 10 of them to begin breaking ground on the gentle slope beside the stream above the territory, clearing the site. For a reservoir designed at 5 meters long, 5 meters wide, and 3 meters deep, Thorn lies on the throne, antennae swaying as he directs the worker ants below. Molan comes racing over with her silk crystal pouch, yanks it open with a swift tug, and holds out a neatly cut, dry grass stoppered bamboo tube to Thorn. He already knows what it is before he even looks. Late autumn, Molan's life seed fruits are the first to ripen, and by the count of days, days it is right on time. The plant associated with Mullen enhances static visual perception. Setting aside yield for a moment, purely in terms of effect it ranks among the very best. Oh, the Mullen seeds have ripened? Thorn pulls out the dry grass stopper, puts on a show of delighted surprise. So many, all for me. What about you? Seeing Thorn pleased, Mullen lights up even more. I have 2 Mullen life seed plants. This year they produced 82 Mullen seeds. Thorn, I'm giving you half, and next year the yield will be much larger, so I'll give you even more. Thorn thanks her warmly, restoppers the bamboo tube with dry grass and tucks it into his silk crystal pouch. Mullen pulls a second bamboo tube from her silk crystal pouch, removes its stopper, tips out 3 orchid seeds and swallows them all in one lick. Thorn takes one to try, then takes a Mullen seed as well. Bitter, both of them. Much better paired with something sweet. Lying side by side with Thorn on the Dominion throne, Mullen eats 10 Mullen seeds one after another between snippets of conversation, then finishes off a cluster of golden melon vine fruit, rests until she is ready, then vanishes into the mountain forest for a full day. Late in the afternoon, a drowsiness settles over Thorn, a sure sign that evolution is approaching. He takes his time through the entire afternoon, consuming 5 Mullen seeds, about as many as he can manage. With the Dominion throne's support, Thorn's dormancy is brief. He wakes in the middle of the following night, having successfully advanced to rank 7 early stage warrior. The fragrant cedar life seed nurturing is complete. At his current size, Thorn's life sac cannot yet hold the azure heaven granted seed, but it can just accommodate a large fruited hemlock seed, so he chooses that without hesitation. On the Myriad Clans continent, the large fruited hemlock is a renowned premium tree species. Its primal energy food output carries a muscle tenacity enhancement effect, a perfect match for the ant clan's strength affinity talent, and something Thorn can always use more of. Mullen can benefit from it too. Combined with primal energy foods that enhance strength, speed, and carapace toughness, it can significantly boost combat power and greatly aid evolution and growth. In truth, Mullen could easily choose any number of high-quality constitution-enhancing tree species as her life seed. Seeds are available through trading caravans, but she has no interest in that path. Her heart belongs to orchids alone. The higher one's rank, the greater the need for varied enhancements. Trading caravans are something neither of them can do without in the long run. Come spring, when they meet Orin again, Thorn can arrange to purchase a batch of jade emerald tree seeds from him. Thorn turns this over in his mind, hops down from the Dominion throne, shakes his antennae to summon food from the worker ants, and begins sorting through the newly awakened inherited memories. This molting has awakened a new pheromone ability. Micro workers, smaller even than minor workers. They are typically used to tend ant eggs and newly hatched larvae, sweep out chamber rooms, and groom the ant king as well as larger workers and soldiers. The following morning, Thorn activates the Dominion throne's emissary function. With his rank now higher, he can now select a batch of 3. The Dominion throne's capabilities have shifted considerably. Each egg production cycle now offers the option of 3. Thorn has been fretting over how slowly the colony is growing, and here is the answer. 3 eggs at once may be too much to handle though, so to be safe, Thorn sensibly sticks with 2. Winter has arrived. Mullen's honey-scent orchid heaven-granted seed should be ripening around now. Thorn has been so occupied directing the colony that he has not visited Mullen's territory in quite some time. He decides to go and check on things. Thorn guides the Dominion throne down to the fermentation pool at the base of the cliff. The Moso bamboo tube resting on the stone slab lid still bears fresh wet marks. First thing in the morning, already gone, she watered the plants before leaving and even delivered hunted food to the ant nest. That one, up and working again before daybreak. If she is out searching for heaven-granted seeds, she is almost certainly pushed far to the south or north along the edge of the divine force barrier. Thorn had planned to find Mullen for a chat and a relaxed stroll through the mountain forest together, but since she is nowhere to be found, it is back to his own territory and back to work. With the Dominion throne now capable of producing 3 eggs per cycle, the colony is growing quickly and will need a larger nest to house them. Expansion work must begin ahead of time. A full day, a night, and another day pass. The sky hangs gray and heavy, a cold drizzle falling, and with the temperature dropping, the worker ants grow sluggish and listless, knocking off early and retreating to the nest. Thorn is resting when a familiar ripple of spirit sense washes over him. Mullen, absent for 2 days, stands at the entrance to the nest, silk crystal pouch bulging, quietly surveying the interior. Thorn, stop sleeping, get up quickly. Mullen calls out through her spirit sense, her excitement barely contained. Thorn gives his wings a light flutter and lands neatly, trots to the entrance, and reaches a forelimb toward the silk crystal pouch. She must have found a new orchid variety. Not exactly. Mullen pulls the bag open before he can. But I found something wonderful. An architect civilization artifact. You know these things well. Come take a look. Thorn freezes. Mullen reaches into the bag and produces a cylindrical metal object roughly 6 to 7 centimeters in diameter, and just over 20 centimeters long. A frostfire water vessel. Thorn recognizes it immediately. Age has taken its toll. The surface glaze has worn through to the bare metal beneath, with only traces of coating remaining around the grip area. Originally, it would have been a clean, handsome white, decorated with blue wave patterns and pale cyan cloud motifs. Seeing that Thorn knows what it is, Mullen's delight doubles. She leans forward eagerly. What does it do, and how do you use it? The vessel has 2 functions: generating water using primal energy, and producing either pure hot water or ice. Thorn turns and runs back into the nest, emerging moments later with the Dominion throne. He stands on the throne, maneuvering it level with the vessel's lid, then reaches out with both forelimbs and presses inward on the inner side of the latch. A crisp mechanical click, and the lid springs up. Source alloy forged by the Wanderer civilization never corrodes. Artifacts made from it can be passed down through generations. Orin owns one such frostfire water vessel himself. By his account, it had already passed through 8 generations before it reached him. Thorn marvels at this, beats his wings to lift off, grips the latch, pulls the lid open and peers inside, empty but spotless. mess. Thorn fits the lid back on, and after a stretch of tinkering, finally works out how to operate it. From now on, whether cold water or hot is wanted, a simple infusion of primal energy is all it takes. Thorn is curious, where did Molan find it? Had she come across the wreckage of another iron sky vessel? Molan shakes her head. She found it in the Great River while searching for heaven-granted seeds. She suggests going back to look further. There may be other things to find. Thorn thinks it over and nods. But first, every preparation must be properly in place. The territory must be left in a state where nothing can go wrong. Thorn and Molan agree on a plan. They will set out once the winter honey-scent orchid heaven-granted seed has been harvested. The winter passes in quiet stillness, broken only by the occasional call of a bird. On the morning of the third day of their expedition, a great river comes into view, dozens of meters wide. According to Molan's account, the Frostfire water vessel most likely drifted down from upstream. Following the plan, they travel upriver. 3 more days and still nothing. They turn back and head straight home to the mountain territory to rest. Suddenly, Molan, who had been leaning over the edge of the throne scanning and searching, leaps up and beats her wings urgently against a rather distracted Thorn. Thorn gets to his feet and sweeps his gaze along both banks of the river below. You found something? Where? He pushes the throne to greater speed, ascending higher into the sky. As they press forward, the primal energy fluctuation Molan described becomes faintly perceptible. Beyond the mountain range lies a vast expanse of flatland forest, and the primal energy fluctuation grows clearer with every passing moment. From mid-morning all the way to the last light of dusk, a low mountain range comes into sight, its full extent visible from altitude in a single glance. The primal energy concentration here does not match that of their home mountain territory, but it is far from weak, comparable to an average location on either the Myriad Clans continent or the Myriad Kingdoms continent. Molan has already done a survey pass. Centered on the low mountain range, the primal energy concentration across a wide surrounding area is quite favorable. They have spent most of the winter searching and found no more architect civilization artifacts, but discovering a site with strong primal energy concentration is a very fine result in itself. By the common convention of the continent, Molan was the one who found this place first. Let's call it Molan Mountain. Molan cheers, then offers a suggestion of her own. The Great River should have a name too. What about Thorn River? Thorn scratches his chin. How about Azure River, or just Blue River? Molan considers for a moment. Blue River has a good sound to it. Blue River it is. With no tangible finds to show, neither Thorn nor Molan is discouraged. They set off for home, spending the entire journey in lively discussion about how to develop this newly discovered territory. As time moves on, winter passes quickly. Spring returns. Molan consumes 54 honey-scent orchid seeds, sleeps for 3 days, and successfully advances to rank 2, peak stage warrior. Thorn directs an even 70 specialized workers in continuing to excavate the reservoir. Spring brings frequent rain, so the construction approach requires a small adjustment. A drainage channel of sufficient depth must be dug first. Thorn must not only pilot the Dominion throne through the air to haul away excavated earth, but also keep a close eye on the worker ants laboring below. Worker ants have no independent consciousness, but they possess a degree of intelligence. They can retain simple instructions and adapt when they run into difficulties. As their numbers have grown, some have taught themselves, with no instruction whatsoever, the art of slacking off and doing as little as possible. Thorn, playing the role of a particularly merciless overseer, catches them every time, diving off the throne to lash them with his antennae and deliver a thorough scolding. But it does little good. They simply do not learn. Thorn even tried organizing them into squads of 10, promoting a squad leader for each group, and ordering the leaders to supervise the rest. The result was even worse. The leaders simply led their entire squads in collective idleness. According to the inherited memories of the giant-headed ant clan, worker ants are supposed to obey their king without question. Whoever heard of worker ants slacking off? Naturally, the inherited memories offer no remedy for it either. Thorn suspects the problem traces back to the Dominion throne. Under normal circumstances, when a giant-headed ant king orders his soldiers into battle, they charge without hesitation, fearless in the face of death. But soldiers raised through the Dominion throne, might they decide the fight is unwinnable and simply run, leaving their king behind? It is not impossible. A deeply troubling thought. Molan is leading her 8 hangers-on to work in the woodland west of the nest, when before long she comes storming over to report, Thorn, 3 of the worker ants have stopped moving. A little while later she is back again. Thorn, this is bad. One of the worker ants has gone missing. There are only 7 left. Time trickles on like a mountain spring. After numerous attempts, Thorn finally identifies the root cause of the slacking. Under the pressure of sustained high-intensity labor, they develop resistance. In the end, Thorn makes the necessary changes. The worker ants head out when the sun rises each morning, return to the nest when the sun sets, and rest 1 day out of every 3. The improvement is clear. Instances of passive shirking drop considerably, and their actual work efficiency is higher for it. A few days later, Molan is suddenly struck by a brilliant idea. If we sell the Frostfire water vessel to a trading caravan, could we ever buy it back once we have spirit cores? Thorn dismisses the idea. It is a functional architect civilization artifact after all. Easy to sell, difficult to recover. To repurchase a Frostfire water vessel with its coating intact and in good condition, the price through a trading caravan could easily exceed 20,000 spirit cores. Molan is taken aback. But you said before that this one would only fetch 7 or 8,000 spirit cores. 7 or 8,000 spirit cores could shorten the time it takes them both to advance to high stage warrior by several years. Factor in the gains that would bring. Is this a loss or a profit? Molan props a forelimb against her chin, thinking, then puts the question to Thorn. Thorn tilts his head skyward and works through the numbers in silence for a moment. That is a rather complex problem, full of too many unknowns to calculate cleanly. As for the Frostfire water vessel, it is not that Molen has grown tired of it. On the contrary, she is deeply attached to it. Every evening after work, she comes to Thorn's side, uses the vessel to brew a pot of hot water, and invites him to drink with her. She has decided to sell it because Thorn has been stuck at early stage Ant King for far too long. Advancing to mid-stage Ant King cannot wait. In early spring, the Molen orchids near the nest come into bloom, their delicate fragrance drifting through the air, and as they fade, every other flower bursts into life. Thorn and Molen count the days, pack their things, and set off on the Dominion throne. A great many trading caravans have already gathered, exchanging goods and information with one another, the place buzzing with activity. Koss and his caravan are nowhere among them. Another 3-day wait begins. A caravan arrives belatedly. Oren glances toward the hill and spots Thorn crouched in the grass staring straight back at him. He's just about to call out when the little Ant King turns on his heels, scrambles over the hill and disappears behind the slope. Little one, you clearly saw me. What are you running for? Oren murmurs puzzled and gives Koss a quick word. I just spotted that small Ant King called Thorn. The moment he saw me, he turned and bolted. I will go and find out what is going on. Koss offers a word of caution. He is traveling with an orchid mantis warrior and has brought something valuable. Take your conversation well away from here. Do not let the other spider kings take notice. Oren's mind moves quickly. Things begin to fall into place. He steps away from the caravan and walks at a measured pace toward the slope. He extends his spirit sense and picks out Molen, hidden behind a thicket of vitex shrubs at the base of the slope, along with the silk crystal pouch beside her. He reaches his sense toward what is inside, and very nearly loses his composure. Oren reins in his shock and excitement, quickens his stride toward the base of the slope, and calls out, Thorn, is that a friend you made on the Ashen Continent? Thorn makes the introduction himself. Molen was born in a mountain range rich in primal energy on the Ashen Continent. I relocated there as well. We keep each other company and help each other along. Away from the hill in a small grove pressed up against the divine force barrier, Thorn glides down and lands. He positions himself between Molen and Oren. Molen, this is Oren. He looked after me like an elder would, and he carries an outstanding reputation across both the Myriad Clans continent and the Myriad Kingdoms continent. A traveling Ember Spitter merchant you can trust completely. An Ember Spider of Oren's rank is an imposing creature, and Molen cannot quite hide her wariness as she offers a careful greeting. Last spring, it was thanks to the primal energy food that Koss extended to us on credit that Molen was able to break through and advance to peak stage warrior. Koss had told Oren the story. He had worried that Thorn's growth was too slow, and Oren had shared that worry for a long time. Oren shifts the conversation. You have a Frostfire water vessel? Found it. Thorn gives a nod. During the heavy rains at the end of last summer, I found it by the river. Oren knows perfectly well that bringing it here means only one thing. It is for sale. Molen is also looking to sell 200 honeyscent orchid seeds. At the mention of a transaction, Oren pulls himself together and slips back into full merchant mode, turning to Molen. This batch of honeyscent orchid seeds is below standard quality, worth approximately 4 spirit cores. However, given that you are a friend of Thorn's, I can stretch to 5 spirit cores per unit. What do you say, Molen? Molen looks to Thorn. Thorn is briefly at a loss for words. Oren always runs the same routine, though in fairness, this year's honeyscent orchid seeds really are only worth that much. Thorn dips his antennae in assent. Thorn then asks him to put a value on the Frostfire water vessel. Oren glances at it. The coating is completely gone, 5,000 spirit cores. Thorn gives him a flat look. Oren, that is outright robbery. Have you forgotten? Back when I traveled with the caravan, you sold a Frostfire water vessel with worn coating for. Oren laughs with mild embarrassment. 7,000 then. Oren knows this particular opponent is well informed. Reluctantly, he concedes a little further. This is a significant transaction. Can I keep a decent margin? 9,000 spirit cores. The seasoned merchant and the sharp little Ant King enter a fierce round of haggling, and Thorn, thoroughly familiar with every tactic in the Ember Spider caravan's playbook, turns them all straight back on Oren. Oren is a capable merchant and holds his ground firmly. After a prolonged back and forth, the Frostfire water vessel is finally settled at 8,200 spirit cores. Shall I calculate your spirit cores together? Oren asks. Thorn nods. Together, everything we earn, we split equally. Split equally. Molen raises her scythe arm in enthusiastic agreement. That crafty little Ant King, swindling a young mantis out of a heaven-granted seed. Oren sees through it perfectly well but says nothing. In the end, Thorn purchases a selection of seeds from Oren and settles the debt owed to Koss from the previous year. The final tally comes to 5,090 spirit cores, enough to fill 5 large pouches. Thorn is far too small to carry it. Molen would need 5 trips to haul it all back to the territory, and next year they would face the same exhausting effort bringing it back to trade again. Thorn lays out his proposal. Give us 90 spirit cores on top of this and leave around 5,000 spirit cores on deposit with you. 1 year, no interest. Next year, we clear the balance with the same 5 portions of primal energy food. Oren catches his meaning immediately. You clever little Ant King.